nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome on this cold evening. Thanks for being here tonight. Board members, make sure everyone has your microphones on so we can hear you loud and clear. At this time, we'll take roll call, and everybody's perfect attendance here tonight. So, going down to the approval of the agenda. All the agenda items are before you. Everybody, questions about the agenda?
Mr. Supervisor, with the board's permission, Mr. Congress and I would like to bring forward a new item under administrative C7, amendment to the employee policies and procedures manual.
Okay, so under administration, C7. Can you repeat that again?
Proposed amendment to the employee policies and procedures manual.
All right, anyone have a problem with that on the agenda? Add it to the agenda? Okay, our agenda is set then. Okay, so now it's time for public comment, and we'll open it up for that. Bonnie?
Yes, I have a problem with the invoice approvals on page 2 for paying Mr. Rockwell for hitting his ear. You're paying his deductible in his car. He was originally, there was a fire truck for the chief to drive. He was going to work. He may be a first responder, but it's his responsibility to do all prudent things to get there, because if he doesn't, then his first responder is no good anyway. And it's a bad precedent to set. If you're going to do that, anyone who is employed by the township has the right to apply for insurance deductible for a flat tire. What about us people in the township who run up and down these roads and need front end alignments? Can we put in bills for that? He had a fire truck, he could use it, he chose not to use it. And you can't say you gave it away, because he gave it away, or he decided not to use it before you were even in office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next.
Yeah. Could we get a little bit more information on what she's talking about?
Yeah, I can address that. Mr. Rockwell responded to a traffic accident. I don't remember the date. This is probably back in November. And a car vehicle accident over on 6 Mile, 2:30 in the morning, and at that time he had hit his ear and damaged his vehicle. And his deductible on is $1,000, and we felt that as responding to an emergency, that, you know, an emergency as such as that we should cover that. Linda?
In reviewing the board packet you have on the agenda, Northville Crossing Water System, it's a little frustrating not to know whether tonight the motion is to approve or decline. There is no benefit to Salem Township to accept this. I hope the board takes that into consideration during their discussion and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, anybody else? Okay, all right, well, let's get on to business. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know we did, and it's a great time to get with families. And so on to the business. We'll turn it to Mr. Winsley, our clerk, for the consent agenda.
I move that Salem Township approve the following consent agenda items: the minutes of November 12, 2013, the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I Item B, the minutes of December 2nd, 2013, the special meeting of the Board of Trustees. Item C, the disbursements for November 2013. We have the general fund November check roster for a total of $99,765.43. That included checks 24329 through 24394. We have disbursements for the escrow account at $500, check number 1535. We had a total payroll for November, $46,385.19. That included, it also, we had electronic funds transfer of $173.50 to Paycor. And we had disbursements of the sewer fund for $5,714.28. Two checks, 1908 and 1909. Item D are the invoices that we will be paying for December. The general fund has $89,267.89. The sewer fund, $6,178.22. And finally, the escrow fund, $377.50. So, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mary Beth Schmidt seconds it. Any other discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to move that we hold the following two invoices that are queued up for the month of December on the invoice roster. Item number 19, James Rockwell for $1,000. Wow. And item number 45, Williams and Associates for $2,000. And I'd like to have a check for Mr. Rockwell will be incorporated in the discussion, and Mr. Congress and I will bring forward under item 7C7.
Okay.
And Mr. Supervisor, justification for holding item number 45 for Williams and Associates is that I believe you have not received the revised appraisal for that particular project.
Correct. So that's still, that should still be on hold.
We need a second on that, Mr. Supervisor.
All right, do we have a second on that?
Pull those items.
To pull those two items?
I'll second it.
Mr. Connors seconds it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda's passed. Okay, we're down to business items, and for the zoning ordinances, we'll turn that over to TJ Block.
I move that Salem Township approve the adoption of the attached zoning ordinance 2013-12-10-01 as recommended by the Planning Commission. The zoning ordinance is available online at the Township website, or it can be reviewed at the Township office. And the second.
Support.
Mr. Trent seconds it. I'd just like to add about the Planning Commission and the Planning Commissioners. I don't really have the exact date on this, but I want to say they've probably been working on this for 2 years, 2.5 years?
At least, yes.
They have done a ton of work on this, and I've had the pleasure of attending a few of the meetings, and I feel they've really done their job and have gone through, so I would just like to make that comment. Any other comments about what's been before you? I know the draft has been on the website. Many people have had the time to look at it. Board members have had time to look at it, go through it. So I want to thank the Planning Commission for all their hard work over this 2.5 years or plus.
Gary,
Yeah.
if I can just say something.
Okay.
I was helping Donna do some of the paper weeding that we're doing in order to digitize our hordes of paperwork that are in the attic. And came across the zoning ordinance from, I think it was about 1952 or 54. So here is the zoning ordinance.
Wow.
And thanks to Michigan law and what they require of us, here's the zoning ordinance that the board went through for the past couple years. So I thought that was a good piece of nostalgia.
Right.
And it was a lot of work.
Right.
We need to archive that.
Right. Okay, any other discussion? We have a second on it?
Mr. Supervisor, I know there was a lot of discussion at prior planning commission meetings regarding the issue of noise or nuisance, and I would trust that going forward that either this board would take some initiative regarding to that and address some very valid citizen concerns about how do we measure noise, what's the appropriate level of noise that's not exempted, as far as agricultural use and so on and so forth, that's identified in the 2003 nuisance ordinance, or we task the planning commission to do that project sometime early next year and come back to the board with some recommendation. But I think that's an issue that does need some follow-up work, and we should not forget and let it lay by the wayside here as we move forward.
Absolutely. Okay, any other discussion?
Does the planning commission have sufficient funds to have consultants with regards to this? Because I have a lot of concerns with a lot of background noise. If you get close to the freeway, you're going to blow the numbers that they're proposing. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to quantify exactly what is offensive. And that's not just picking a number that goes in that standard. So I would be in favor of approving some kind of action where they can get some consultants in here that can actually do background noise checks in addition to what is the acceptable standards over above that. It's
Right.
just a comment.
Right. There's, you know, a lot of the issues that we have, and I believe our planners and people that are consultants that we have that can work together on coming up with a solution with the noise ordinances that we have, and to make sure that it gives us, not that we want to be a township that goes and polices all the areas, but we want to, if there is somebody who is really violating an issue, that we have something to legally be able to stop. As of right now, it's just not, it's not there. So, and that's something we do need to address. Because we do get a lot of complaints on a lot of different things that we just really have no way to enforce it. Okay, so let's get back. So we have a second. Any other discussion on the new draft? Okay, all those, do we need to do a roll call on this? Let's take a roll call on this.
Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, and Whitaker.
Yes. Okay, so the zoning update ordinances are passed. All right, now we go back to TJ again for the Parks and Recs and open space plan.
I move that Salem Township approve the adoption of the attached 2014-19 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan Resolution. The Parks, Recreation, Open Space Plan is available online, and it's also been available at the Township office for review, and here's what it's like. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
John seconds it. And again, just to make a comment, there's been a lot of time involved in the committee that's put this together. And it just is something that's needed, and we can put into a plan for grants, the special things that the township ever wants to apply for. So this is a great thing that our community has done. All right, any other discussion?
I just wanted clarification for everybody who's not, up to their eyeballs in this stuff every day. Could you make it clear that one of the reasons we had this, and maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons we wanted this is so that we could apply for grants. Really, without this being set up, we would not be able to apply for anything from the state of Michigan for future recreational areas and stuff like that.
Ronnie, you have any comments on that?
Well, that is the key. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources has a fund available for local governments to tap into for grant funding for certain parks recreation projects. And their stipulation is that the township go through this process of planning out what we want to have happen in our community. And the last step in this process will be to present the plan to the state. They'll review the plan and ultimately, hopefully, if all goes well, accept it for eligibility, and that will make the township eligible then for future grants.
So there is still a process of this plan being accepted?
Yeah, what happens after township board action to adopt the document, it is sent out to a couple of the regional agencies just for their information, sent to the County Parks and Rec Department and the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments. They have no approval authority, they just accept the document. But for the state of Michigan, for the Department of Natural Resources, it is sent to them, and they have a review process where they simply verify that all the elements they want to see in the plan, that all of them are there. And throughout the process, we have followed their checklist to make sure that all the elements are there. Once they verify that it's complete, they then accept the plan and put the township on the list as being eligible for grant funding.
Any idea when that approval process would be complete?
We can send it in any time, so we'll certainly send it in once it's adopted. We'll send it as quickly as possible. The deadline for the state every year is 1st February. But if we send the plans in before that, they will review it when they receive it. As to how long, it's a state agency, but I would certainly expect to hear an answer early in the new year.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Trent?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Supervisor. I just want to commend the committee that worked very diligently over the last year to submit this report, and not only for the Planning Commission to approve and the public hearing, but also this board tonight. Since there is a window of time for submitting this to the state, I would just advise that we do a thorough proofread of the final document. I did note a grammatical and a typo on pages 1 and 7. There may be others, but let's ensure that we foolproof it as much as possible before we send it to the state. Mr. Supervisor, only because it's a following agenda item, I find it interesting to note on page 21 of this document that one of the high priorities that was noted referencing the citizen survey that was taken 2 years ago is that in the category of activities and quality of life, that the number one response from our citizens that responded to that survey was to acquire property to preserve open space. And I think that's pertinent in light of what's on the agenda tonight. It's worth noting.
Okay. So any other discussion on this? And we have a second already? Who's seconded?
John Daniel.
John Daniel, okay.
So we probably should take
And
another roll
let's
call.
take a roll call on this one also.
Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes?
Laughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, and Whitaker.
Yes. Okay, we're down to the financials. This is the purchase of Order Tracks property. Mr. Converse.
Mr. Supervisor, we have put out the challenge to the public for comments, or rather with regards to the purchasing of the 4-track properties down there, and it is my pleasure to state that by overall, just a wide margin, We have received nothing but praises for going ahead. I do appreciate some of the people that have responded in we shouldn't. We have taken their considerations under consideration, and we feel that we have workarounds with many of those considerations. And with that being said, Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the purchase of the four-track properties for the amount of $1,500,000 and authorize Supervisor Whitaker to sign the agreements.
Support.
Mr. Trent, supports. Just a couple of comments I want to make about this. This is a big thing for our township, and I don't take it lightly. I do think that this is, there's two ways of looking at it, and I want to make it perfectly clear to everybody here, to Joanne Heil and her videoing and everybody else, so there's a record of this, of me saying this, that this property is meant for public use of the people of Salem Township. This is not a development, this is not a board decision to get into the development business, to buy or to purchase property, to develop it. This is a piece of property that our residents can enjoy and preserve for a long time. We actually have our engineers here tonight that have done evaluation of the property, and they're here tonight. And if any of you board members have any questions about the environmental study that was done on the property, you can ask them questions. And Dima and I'm sorry, John, with Stamtech that has done their study. And again, if you are a person here tonight that feels also that, we've heard the comments, and Mr. Commerce, I appreciate many of the comments have been positive, but there have been some negative ones. And we need to be honest about that, and the people that have said it. But I think that once everything is said and done, you either look at it as preserving a piece of property in our town that we can enjoy, or it's also to look at that it's an asset for the township as far as having that piece of property that is valuable. So it's, if you're not for, the township not being in the business of having property or purchasing property to preserve it, then, you can look at it as an asset. So it's moving monies from our reserves and picking up a piece of property that's valuable. So, there's always two ways of looking, or there's ways of, hey, we just shouldn't be buying it at all. But I feel it will be good to preserve this property for public use for this township for years to come. And then moving forward, if this is a decision that the township does decide to do, I believe it's important for this board to make it clear after a purchase agreement has been signed that we make it known, and that we make a motion and we put out that this is to be preserved for a number of years or whatever, so that the only way of changing it, if a new board comes in, that it's by the vote of the people, if this is what they want us to do. 25 years from now, we can make a motion to say 25 years, we want it to be preserved to use for public use. Again, I have a little bit hard time moving forward. 25, 30 years from now, who knows what our township might be in shape. And I'm saying, if you look at that piece of property, I'm not against development. And I'm saying, as long as it's controlled development and it's a nice, a nice plan. I know we've talked about this before, but I want to make it clear that, if, say, 30 years from now, we don't have the income from the landfill, and we have to, let's say, we have, we need some tax base. Then at that point, it can be a decision for people in 30 years from now to make that decision. Hey, we want to develop this. And you can, instead of being 1 acre lots, it can be 5 acre lots. It can be something that would be kind of like a lot of these developments we have in our community now that are just, to me, are beautiful. They leave the trees, they're on 5 acre lots, and it still gives that rural look that I think all of us love about Salem Township. So, hopefully I've made myself clear about it, Mr. Converse.
One of the issues that we have been brought up to our attention more than anything else is ultimately it's going to cost us to maintain this property. And people have felt fairly strongly that that is an undue burden upon the community. Well, right now, most of that land is leased out for agriculture. And I'm going to propose that that money be set aside to be used on the property, not to go back into the general fund, to be used in other things, but to be set aside for the development of that property for everybody to enjoy. Because right now, there isn't walking paths, there isn't horse trails, there aren't other things that are on there that, where the public can use and enjoy it. And that will take resources. But what I'm saying here is, we can garner some of the resources that are available from the lease that's coming from the land right now. So that's a proposal, it's not a part of the motion, but it's something that I want to see going as we go forward to address some of the issues of the financial burden that it may bring to the community.
Mr. Trent, you have something?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, thank you. I'm in support of the purchase of this property. This is something that this board has kicked around for several months. I commend the supervisor for his willingness to have the openness and transparency with the public about this particular possibility of purchasing this property. 2 years ago, we created a Land Preservation and Conservation Board. And the board at that time made a commitment that because of the citizen responses we have received through the surveys that, just as I noted earlier from the report that was submitted tonight, that people in this township, or at least the vast majority of them, feel that one way that we can preserve the rural character of our township is to not only control development, but possibly acquire development rights, or in this case, an outright purchase of the property. And one of the things that this board had to deal with was to what degree, if any, we wanted to allow third-party funds to come into the picture. And after considering those options that were submitted to us by the Land Preservation Board, such as trying to acquire grant monies through the county or matching federal funds, we deemed that long-term it was in our best interest to move forward with the purchase of this property and just buy it outright so that we have the ultimate control and flexibility to do with it as we deem appropriate for our citizens and not get entangled in any commitments with other agencies. So to that end, 2 years ago, the Township Board committed that we would budget $200,000 a year over the next 5 years for this very purpose that is before us tonight. And in one sense, I believe we're just accelerating the process to invest $1.5 million in 235 acres of prime property in this township that will be an asset for many years to come.
Beth?
Bear with me, I'm getting over a thing. There's a cough drop going on here. But what I wanted to really express tonight was how much I appreciate everyone who took time to email the board. You really helped shape my opinion on this matter. When we were first kicking this around, like, they said 2 or 3 months ago, I felt pretty ambivalent about the whole thing. I really didn't know I could see the pros and cons of both sides. So hearing public opinion and your guys' well-thought, really articulate emails to me really did point out to me a lot of things, and I just really wanted to thank everybody officially for helping us, wade through this decision.
How many emails have you gotten?
I don't have a count, but I would say maybe
10?
30 to 40 perhaps, but, I don't have it all tallied up.
Yeah.
2 questions. One, I thought the 200,000 that David mentioned was only for use in purchasing development rights, not land. And the other question was, I thought that you were going to have a plan as to what you were going to do with this property before you purchased it, so you knew which direction you were going. And I haven't heard anything about that.
Well, it's for public use, I've said that many times.
Yeah, but what? I mean, I
Well,
can't go over
I
there
mean,
and walk on their property.
Again, as we've said before, that we are taking baby steps on this as far as what we want to do with it. And, you know, we want the public's input on it. And you got grant money that you can apply for, if you want to have walking trails, you want to have horse trails, whatever. I mean, there's just a number of things that, you know, we can have a committee, but it's for public use. That's why we are purchasing. Yeah.
Gary, when you spent that type of money, you said you've been at this for several months. Why was it never put up to the vote of the people? Mr. Daniels, I talked to Mr. Daniels before, and he said, oh, I'd love to have it put up to the vote of the people, but yet he's never opened his mouth at a meeting about it. C.J. McLaughlin said it, I think at the last meeting, she would love to have vote on it, but yet I've never heard nobody bring it up at a meeting. You
Well,
people are spending $1.6 million of our money, and that should be the vote of the people, not just you guys thinking.
I appreciate your comments, O'Neill. Here's my point on this. You know, when we first came into office, as they've said about the Land Preservation Board that they had, there's an ordinance that the past board had put in. And everything, and again, the problem I always have had with it is that it's always done in closed session. There's very little input about bringing it out in open session and discussing like we're discussing now.
But it's already a done deal
Wait a
now.
minute, let me finish. We ended up buying a piece of property, not to throw anybody under the bus, but we bought a piece of property and we spent money on it that the township people really never, a lot of people didn't even know about. There were not issues in the messenger and trying to get it out to people, let them know that we spent, you know, monies on a property that just wasn't the best thing for our town. So that's when we thought, listen, if we're gonna do something, we're gonna listen to the people, the surveys, we're gonna go out there and do something like this. We're gonna put it out to the people and let them give us, is this something they wanna do? Put your money where your mouth is. If this is something you wanna do. And again, I have received at least 80 emails and phone calls and people coming in and that have been very positive about doing it. Now we received.
How many negative?
I would say maybe about a dozen. And again, it's.
The only thing I got against the whole situation, Gary, is you guys are spending all that money without the vote of the people. If it's that important, the people of the township should have had a chance to vote on it. You had more than enough time to let the people vote on it. Daniels was talking about it 2 months ago, about voting on it, and yet he never said a damn word about it. You should let the people vote on it, not you guys make up our decisions.
Well, you know, that should have been something, probably should have been addressed when you, and you were at a lot of these meetings.
I was at a lot of meetings, I talked to Daniels about it too.
No, I'm talking about,
Trustee.
let me finish, when the ordinance
Don't
was
throw it back
passed.
on me, you guys are the ones.
I'm saying when the ordinance was passed, you know, a few years ago, this is what the charge was for the township board to do, period. Okay, anybody else have any questions on this plan? But
Yes, Gary, now this plan you're talking about, this property, is this strictly for Salem residents only? Or is it for the public? And if it's for the public, are you gonna charge a fee, like a state park, for people to go down and do it?
No.
Is it gonna be monitored?
yeah, it would definitely be monitored, and there would be signs put up. Of course, one of the residents said over there, in fact, they were kind of against it in the beginning, but when they looked at it, they thought, well, there would be rules and regulations that, you know, hey, if somebody's hanging out there, you know, there's hours out there, you would have some control over that.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Trent.
Mr. Supervisor, before we take a formal vote on this, I would appreciate having a brief recap from our engineering consultants on their environmental assessment. And also, I'd like to find out if there's any legal issues that this board needs to be apprised of in preparation for trying to close on this property pending approval tonight.
Okay, so we'll have Damon, would you like to give us a report on this?
From here is okay?
Can you hear it if she stands up? I know we have a microphone. Is this microphone?
Yes, it is.
Good evening. I have John Calias, which is a colleague of mine. Both of us are from Stantec. We were hired by the township to conduct a Phase 1 environmental assessment, which is the first step study that is typically done when prior to purchasing a property. The study would give an idea of whether there are any recognized environmental concerns on the property. Those would be historical, existing use, existing conditions, properties within the vicinity of the property itself that you're trying to purchase, or the property use that is in place. We looked at several historical information sources, and we looked at USGS historical maps. We visited the site. We conducted an actual site reconnaissance, as well as interviews with key site representatives, and the results of the study came to be as no recognized environmental conditions, meaning that there isn't enough evidence to cause us to go to the next step, which would be a Phase 2 that involves soil borings and underground investigation, groundwater investigation, and may result in a BEA, which is a baseline environmental assessment. I'm going to give the microphone to John, because John is the one who actually did the hard work and did the investigations, to give you an update on specifics of the property use and what they found on site. John, thank you.
I don't know if I have a lot to say beyond what Ava just brought up. Again, we performed a site reconnaissance. We checked out the entire 235-acre property. We checked historical documentation on the property, such as historical topographic maps, historical aerial photographs, things of that nature. Again, we performed interviews with the current property owner. We provided a questionnaire to Gary to fill out for us. In the end, we did not determine that there were any significant recognized environmental concerns associated with the property. I don't know if you have any specific questions about...
Any questions for?
So did you guys meet the ASTM standard for Phase 1 survey?
Yes, we did. We performed it according to the ASTM standard. Copies of the report were provided to the township. It does reference the standard.
No deviations? No exceptions? Okay.
No deviations, no exceptions. There were no data gaps. As far as that goes, there was nothing that we felt we needed to investigate further in order to come to any conclusions in that regard.
Anybody else? Do you have anything else, Mr. Trent?
Just any legal issues or concerns related to closing.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for that report.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As the board knows, we initially had an option for 90 days on the property. The purpose of the option was to give the township residents sufficient time to voice any concerns they had over this purchase, to let the board know whether they were in favor or against the purchase of the property. And also because that was a period of time that would give the township due diligence to research the property. Part of that, of course, was the environmental assessment that Dean and John just spoke of. The other part was to do the title search to make sure that the township was going to get clear title on the property. So that's been accomplished. We have, not being presumptuous what the board's going to do tonight, but because the option actually expires on Monday, we have scheduled a closing for Monday on the property. If the board elects to go ahead with the purchase. Obviously, the board does not, the closing would be canceled. The title search did find there was a lien on the property and also a mortgage on the property. The lien has been paid off by the seller. We will be getting a discharge before the closing next Monday for that lien. And the mortgage on the property, most of that's been paid off. The balance that hasn't will be paid off as part of the proceeds that the township is paying for the property. So by the time of closing on Monday, the township will acquire the property free and clear, with fee simple title, if the board approves it tonight. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, we went out there today to drive around, and one of the things that we noticed was there's some balers, or some drills, or some agricultural equipment that still is on the property. And do we know, whose those are? Are those to be removed? Are they go with the property? What's the disposition of a lot of the equipment that's still on the land? There's also a lot of old junk cars, boats, and other stuff that's still on there. Will that go as is, or is that to be cleaned up prior to?
Well, that's certainly something we can take up with the seller to make sure that's cleaned up. I know there is some farming equipment there because the property is obviously being leased and being farmed. That lease will be expiring at the end of this year, so the township will be able to, at its option, renew that lease if it chooses to do so. But as far as the equipment, we can take that up with the seller.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, this may be a silly question, but from a legal standpoint, since we, as part of the contract, we're breaking the payment up into two segments. One this month if the board approves this action, one in May. So regarding some of the issues that Mr. Converse raised as far as equipment that's there, things of that nature, when would we have a full exercise to determine whether or not those things should be removed at the seller's?
Well, I will take that up with the seller before the closing on Monday and get some commitment from them when that will be taken care of.
Also, what about the people living in the house? That's probably something we need to address too. Yeah.
People living in the house.
All right, any other questions?
Is removal of the equipment a part of the purchase agreement?
No. The equipment there is just actually Butch George and all the people who are farming it, they all have their equipment there that are
Yeah,
doing the
but I mean
farming.
junk cars and stuff, that would cost us money to
Yeah,
remove.
well,
You'd make money in that deal.
No, you make money.
Yeah. That's not gonna cost us anything.
I just like to have those kind of
Right.
things addressed, when we go into agreement.
Joanne?
I just wanted to clarify something. You're talking about the Land Preservation and Conservation Board and how it was established. When it was established, it was supposed to use interest income as their funding. They were supposed to get interest income up to $200,000 a year. It was never the intent to pull a large sum of money out of the general fund. So if that's the intent of this board, that's fine, but don't say it was the original intent. The original intent was to use interest income to purchase land or to purchase conservation rights.
Okay. And that was on the development rights.
Development rights.
Right. And of course, we're not doing, we are purchasing the property outright. All right, anything else? I just want to make sure if anybody has some really questions they need to, now's the time to. Okay, so,
Gary?
Mr. Converse?
Did I understand correctly then that there was no Phase 2 environmental study done on that property anywhere? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, but the consultant, Barry Lonick, did say that there was an area of the property that he was concerned about, and in our last Land Preservation and Conservation Board meeting, both Mary Beth and you, Gary, were at that meeting, and he did say that there was an area that he had some concerns about. So how did you clarify in your own mind that there were no environmental issues in that area? Because of what our engineers said, based on this?
I really looked at the experts, and, Barry is not an expert, and, we've had, and again, this sounds like I'm throwing him under the bus, and I don't mean to,
Yeah.
but Mr. Lonick, many times has been wrong on so many things. In fact, the appraisal of lands, it's just not right. So, I don't look for Barry as the expert on that.
I'm not saying he's the expert on it, but I am saying that
Well,
he had an
that's why I
area that
refer
he
to the
said that
people
he
that
had
were
a concern about. So I just,
Right.
what if we purchase the property and we find out that, let's say, that particular area does have an issue, then do we have a right to go back on our engineering and Stantec because of the way they let us, saying that it was okay? Or are we, as a township, going to be responsible for the environmental cleanup and the costs involved with that?
Did you like to, John?
In the event that you do have a specific concern about a specific area on the property, we did not find any evidence of the environmental concern you're speaking of, but if you would like to pursue it, we can collect soil and groundwater samples from the area. You have 45 days from the date of purchase to complete the Phase 2 investigation and prepare a baseline environmental assessment. At that point, you have 6 months to submit the baseline environmental assessment to the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. And they will actually provide a review of the baseline environmental assessment, and that will offer you some protection if there is any environmental issues discovered. So again, if you have a specific area that you do feel it's necessary to take some environmental samples on, I guess we didn't identify this area, but if someone has some, I don't know who Barry is, but if he has some specific knowledge, it is possible if you have 45 days from the date of purchase to collect samples, perform the Phase 2 investigation, and complete a baseline environmental assessment.
And then you could revoke the purchase? Is that what you're indicating?
You wouldn't revoke the purchase, but you would be able to have liability protection in terms of you being, the township being liable for the environmental contamination on the property. You would not, you can get yourself environmental liability protection with the state by performing this baseline environmental assessment.
Okay, but who is the person that then is liable for the cleanup? The cost of the cleanup? Is it the present owner? Are you saying the state? Who are you saying?
It could potentially be both. If it's the current owner would likely be responsible. However, in certain situations, it could also fall back onto the state as it could become like an orphan site or something along those lines where the state ends up taking responsibility. However, it does afford liability protection. It would afford liability protection for the township.
Am I to understand that you have not talked to the consultant at all regarding the Land Conservation Board? Is that correct? There's been no communication?
I have not personally.
Which consultant do you?
Barry Lonick is his name.
What are his credentials?
Ms. Beejan, would you care to refer to?
Land preservation consultant.
Right, and what value does he bring to?
He just noticed there was some dumping there last year, and he noticed it, he pulled it out, that's all, it's the same, check it out, right off the road behind the barn.
What kind of dumping?
Dumping
Dirt, it was dirt, just dirt.
Yeah, I'm sure by a year later it's overgrown and it's not something that would necessarily be a concern, but again, in terms of the environmental concerns, unless the dirt was contaminated with hazardous materials or waste,
You guys say it's good.
the dirt isn't necessarily an issue either.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Phase 1 environmental study enforces certain standards on any engineer or any consultant that prepares those studies. So you follow a certain standards, and by following the standards, we did not find any recognized environmental assessment. It doesn't mean that we're giving like 100% blanket, but there isn't any, but following the standards, there hasn't been anything found. If something happened last year and it got overgrown and no one talked about it, we can, there's no way for us to know, basically. But at the same time, nothing that was investigated indicated any type of environmental concern with this property.
So can I piggyback what you just said? So that's why I asked her if she followed the national standard of ASTM. That's a recognized standard across the country as to whether the property is contaminated or not contaminated. That's what banks use, that's what anybody that has a fiduciary concern will use an ASTM standard. And then you want to notice if there's any exceptions. Did you not see something where you're looking for something? They said no. So that's what a prudent property owner would do, whether you're buying a business or you're buying property or if you've got some concern. So if you look at the ASTM standards, it's very arduous as far as what they have to look at, what they need to see. And it's a snapshot in time. Nobody's got x-ray eyes. Nobody knows exactly because nobody posted a guard out there 24/7. But it gives you a very good, comfortable feeling that we looked at it at a reasonable look through the history of it, not just the current owners, and making sure that you're not getting a piece of property that was a dry cleaner or a gas station, or something else that's gonna raise some red flags. Is that fair?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick question, Mr. Supervisor. Just so we go back, when you deal with real estate, everything will go back to the agreement. Everything's written in the agreement, and maybe Ed, you can speak to Exhibit D, number 7, the representations and warranties, and it goes to letter M. There's a whole paragraph on environmental conditions and environmental law. And that, at least in my review, that specifically talks about M, environmental conditions.
Would title insurance cover any of that at all?
All that's in this document. So legal has gone through this document.
The purpose of that section in the purchase agreement is basically to state that the current owner, as far as they know, and having knowledge of the history of the property, they know of no reason to believe that there's any environmental contaminants or any type of environmental hazard on the property. If we were later to determine that there was something there and that they did have knowledge of it, then you'd have recourse against the seller, basically on a fraud claim for selling something or failure to disclose if they knew there was some environmental condition.
That's exactly. That answers all the questions there.
And I think if, Mr. Supervisor, I think if we did subsequently find out there was a legitimate concern and an issue and there was costs involved in taking care of that concern, that with having some monies that the seller would be owed, several months, that we could then, hold back on that if we incurred any costs.
Bud?
I'm just going to clarify something. You're taking the money from the Salem Township Fund, which we all put in for, to purchase this land, and it's for public use. Not for Salem people's just use, it's for everybody, is that correct? Or is it just for Salem residents? If it's for Salem residents, it's my understanding you cannot apply for federal grants in the state of Michigan to help if you privatize a piece of land for the township, is that correct?
I don't have an answer to that question. Do you know?
Not right offhand, other than typically the DNR grants are for public use, so that would not be something where it'd be limited to residents.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right. We're ready to take a roll call on this.
All right. Converse.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
McLaughlin.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Wensley. Yes. And Whitaker.
Yes. Okay, well, we'll see what happens from here going forward. And, if I can make one more comment, personal comment on this, I just think it's something, whether you agree or not, I still feel it's a positive thing for our township to do. It's always frustrated me when you look at the monies that we have spent over the years in litigation and everything that this township has. And I think this is something that we as a town can be proud of, that the citizens can use it for something and have something that is valuable for our residents and for people in this town. So to me, it's a very positive thing, and I appreciate, again, all the input for so many people in our town. And hopefully, moving forward, we can do something that's very positive with it, and that people will enjoy it. So, okay, and we're down to B2, which is budget amendment.
Mr. Supervisor, based on the board action that just took place, I move that Salem Township approve the following cost center budget amendment for fiscal year 2013-14 to increase the budget in cost center 980 for capital expenditures from $231,785 to $271,785, with the line item for land acquisition 820.001 being increased by $40,000 from $66,000 to $106,000, and to fund that increase by decreasing our cost center 446 highways and streets from $425,000 to $385,000. The balance of the funding for this expense will come from accrued committed funds, land acquisition, which currently totals $85,200, and the remaining balance of $608,800 from general fund reserves.
You have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Mr. Winsley? Any questions? We'll do a roll call on this one also.
Converse,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, and Whitaker.
Yes. Okay, next is the Public Act 152 resolution.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township adopt Resolution 2013-12-10.
Credentials.
02, Mr. Clerk.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Complying with provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011, exercising the township's right to exempt itself from the provisions of Public Act 152. Mr. Supervisor, this resolution simply gives the township the flexibility to exempt itself from the requirement that the legislature approved 2 years ago that requires public employees to fund 20% of their health care benefits. It's been the practice for the past 2 years for the township to exempt itself so that we can determine which level of benefits we will provide to our employees, and the level of benefits they will have to pay out of their own pocket. And this requires a 2/3 vote of the body. I ask for support for this resolution, Mr. Supervisor.
Have a supporter? I'll support it. We do need a roll call on this one. Yes.
Daniel,
Yep.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt, Trent,
Yes.
Converse,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, and Whitaker.
Yes.
I'm voting.
Okay, so the resolution passes, and we're down to the building department coordinator position.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to move that Salem Township approve the hiring for the position of Salem Township Building Department Coordinator with a starting compensation rate of $16.50 an hour to commence immediately, the person of Lori O'Brien.
And
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Trent.
Thank you. Last week, the Township Board had the opportunity to interview two very well qualified candidates for the position of Building Department Coordinator. Mr. Supervisor, at the beginning of that meeting, you noted the timeline of the process that this board went through, where a few months ago we had initially determined that we would go out and advertise for a community development administrator position. And after several weeks, we reconvened and decided that a better strategy would be to break up that position after it had been merged 2 years ago, and break out those responsibilities and go out and advertise for just a building department coordinator position, and be able to utilize the services of Donna Cripps going forward on a more part-time basis than what she is today. And so to that end, we went through that process, and when you go through that process, you never know what you may come up with, but we were pleasantly surprised that in our own backyard, there was a very qualified person who had a degree in construction management from Eastern Michigan University, has worked in the construction field for over 10 years, and brings a wealth of knowledge that I think will serve our community and this board well going forward. And so I'm pleased to recommend that we offer the position to Lori O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. Do we have a second already?
Theo? Yeah.
All right, let's do a roll call for this.
Converse?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Wensley, yes. And Whitaker.
Yes.
Hey, Laurie, you're in there.
Mr. Supervisor,
16 so.
Mr. Trent?
with your permission, I'd like to bring a subsequent motion to the floor. Members of the board, after having gone through this process of interviewing the two candidates for the building department coordinator position and assessing where strategically we want this board to be able to accomplish and move forward over the next couple of years, we recognize that there are qualities in the second candidate who has been serving as a temporary employee for the last several months that would be beneficial if we were able to continue her employment in more than just a temporary status. And to that end, I'd like to make the following motion, that we approve the creation of a new part-time office staff position to be called Administrative Assistant 2, Roman numeral 2, with the following major job responsibilities: administrative support for the fire chief and fire department, administrative support for the assessing department, website administrator, provide office counter citizen assistance, continue her involvement in the optical scanning project support, to be a temporary office fill-in for the executive departments and officials, and other tasks that the township supervisor deems appropriate. And promote from within the current temporary employee, Ann Alexander, to the position with a starting compensation rate of $15 an hour to commence immediately.
I'll second that.
Mr. Supervisor, I know you may have some comments to share, but I think a lot of us recognize the attributes and the qualities that Ms. Alexander has brought to the table, that we've been able to observe her quality of work firsthand. And I think with this creation of this staff position, that it will benefit us immensely over the next several months to help us accomplish some very critical projects that we've undertaken, and it will help meet our needs and provide that multifaceted person that can essentially go across what I like to call those Chinese walls, where you have these statutory territorial boundaries that have existed in the past, and we come into office and we inherit the system. And I think it's the purpose of management, and we being the managers, to determine the policies and the systems that are implemented in the township. I think going forward, because we have limited staff, that it's incumbent that we devise an organizational structure that gives us the flexibility, where people are cross-trained and they can go across those statutory territorial boundaries and work together. And I think Ms. Alexander provides those kinds of attributes that we're looking for in office staff, between her interpersonal skills, working with the current office staff, as well as the citizens at large. And I think she'll be a great asset to our township.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. As you all know, Donna Cripps is more or less semi-retiring, so we are going to be lost with a person in the office. It's funny how boards work and how things change your mind. I have to admit, I was one of them that thought for sure, because Ann has been here for a while and is learning some of the different situations up at the desk. And because of the board's input at the last meeting we had and discussions, it's come up with that they have somebody different to work with. So Ann would be a great fit for this position. We did also check with our legal counsel to see if we can promote within. As far as our procedure manual that the township has. And I don't know, Ed, is Ed out there in the back? Mr. Plato, where is he at? He's left?
Jim's waiting.
Anyway, I'd like him just to make a brief comment on, because we did have a concern on that. But I don't know if many of you have been at come into the town hall during the day. Ann has handled things very professional and friendly way of helping people who come to the counter. And it is important that we have people that can assist. Everybody is part-time. And so with adding Ann on there, with Donna being away, our plan, try to make this clear, our plan is how many people do come in the town hall for zoning issues or planning, or if they're coming in for develop a community or whatever. We don't get a lot of requests of people coming in for that. And what we do is that we do have our consultants, which is our planner, Rodney and Don Pennington. When these things come up, we can use these people for our resources of information. So for years, the township has had a zoning person in place here full-time. And we just have to ask ourselves, how much do we have that come across with us? So I feel our planners and something that we are looking at, Superior Township, our neighbor, they actually have their planner meet over there if you want an appointment with a planner or discuss, or if a developer comes in or whatever. They can meet on Wednesday, make an appointment, and they meet, and then we get charged accordingly. So that's kind of our approach when it comes to issues that come up in the township as far as our zoning and planning come, as Donna has had a lot of information on that. And then also when Donna comes back from Florida, she's even talked about maybe working a day a week. We can use her if we choose to do that too. But there's ways of taking care of the planning and zoning is what I'm trying to say. But with Lori handling at the building department, and then these other issues with Ann filling in, will help our everyday flow of people walking in that needs assistance. But Mr. Plato, I had to ask a question about if people have concerns about us hiring a part-time person and Ann in her position, if it's within, can we promote somebody according to our policies?
Yes. Yeah, there's no, certainly no state or other requirement or local requirement, or legal requirement that you have to go outside or post a job in any way. In fact, many of the state laws encourage promoting from within the municipality. We do have our own personnel policies that talk about posting a position, but those are intended as guidelines and not mandatory. We have requirements for what you need to do if you are going to post a position, but it's not mandatory under our policies and procedures that every position be posted. And in this case, where we have an individual that the township has dealt with, is comfortable with, and knows they can do the position, there's certainly no reason to go through the expense and time of trying to seek somebody outside of the township.
Excuse me, I have a question about, the zoning administrator has a job description that exists now, and I was wondering who, or how will those duties be taken over by whom, you know, for example, like enforcement and overseeing our zoning ordinance that we just passed, and doing all the work that a zoning administrator has to do.
Right.
I'm just asking.
Right, and my approach has been different since I've come in. You know, we've had a lot of different issues that have come up, and how do we handle them? In a small town like ours, I feel like we should be able to handle it if something comes in with a complaint, that I myself have made the calls. And instead of sending out a letter from the government, he's saying, you know, you are doing wrong or whatever. What is wrong with the approachment of coming to our citizens and saying, listen, we have an issue here. You know, how do we handle this? And if, you know, you get somebody who is just gonna, well, I can do whatever, you know, I mean, then you're gonna, you know, then you know, I mean, you hate to talk to the legal because what, you know, it's gonna cost you. So I feel it's just, so far, I mean, I've only been in here for a year, but so far, everything that's come in, we have made a personal contact and have talked with people and say, listen, how can we, here's what the ordinances say, here, and that's been our approach. So, and again, as it goes on to planning, and, you know, if I have a question, I don't understand the ordinance or whatever, that's why we have our consultants to explain it or to get clarification on it. So that's been the approach. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How many hours a week are you thinking of utilizing Annie in the office?
I think we talked with Donna's schedule about, is it 20 or
20, well, she currently works 28.
28? So we're looking at 20 to 28.
And the same thing with Lori.
Right.
Lori.
Right. And then remember, of course, Donna will not, you know, she's semi-retired or retired. And if we feel we need her to come back in, it'd be something we get addressed down the road here.
I've got a question. So this means it would be additional expense to the township?
Well, with Donna leaving, no, it's really not.
Okay.
Right?
Donna does make a higher salary, so the cost will be offset, not completely, but it'll be a minimal impact to the budget.
Okay. Do we have a second on this?
Dale.
Dale, okay. Dale Conner seconds.
And we'll do a roll call.
We'll do a roll call.
Converse,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wensley, yes, Whitaker.
Yes. Okay, moving right down to the drinking water. Mr. Trent.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township decline the ownership and/or operational responsibilities of the Northville Crossing Manufactured Housing Community drinking water supply and direct the clerk to send correspondence to some communities along with a copy of the minutes reflecting the Salem Township Board of Trustees action.
I'll second that.
Mary Beth, seconds. Any questions about this?
Mr. Supervisor, just a brief background comment, and perhaps Mr. Plato can comment as well, that it's my understanding because the Northville Crossing community has new ownership, that they're required to submit a request to the local body on whether or not we want to accept ownership and responsibility of their private drinking water system. And that's part of the purpose here. It's a DEQ requirement, and it requires a board action to say yea or nay. And in this case, obviously, I'm recommending that we decline that opportunity. Did I state that correctly?
You stated perfectly, Mr. Trent.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer.
Okay, we have a second on that? Are Doug? Okay, any other discussion? Maybe a roll call on this one too? Or all those in favor?
I would do a roll call.
All right, let's do a roll call.
Converse?
I vote to decline.
Okay, so all right. Yes, so we'll vote, if you want to decline, we'll say yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so Converse, yes. Daniel?
Yes.
McLaughlin? Schmidt? Trent?
Yes?
Wensley? Yes. Whitaker?
Yes. Crazy microphone. Okay, down to the fire department. Mary Beth Schmidt.
Yes, I move that Salem Township approve a 1-month extension of the deadline for fire department firefighter applications from the original date of December 31st, 2013 to January 31st, 2014. And one reason I requested that was really for giving us more time to advertise these positions being open and give us a little more time. December 31st seemed to come up way too fast.
Do we have a second?
No, second.
TJ seconds it. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
Can you tell me how many applications we received so far?
4.
How many?
4.
Four.
So I was hoping maybe we could get it advertised on the webpage as well. And as we made the comment that it's through the holidays, and we'd like to get it more. I think if we get the word out, I think we'll receive more applications.
Okay. All right, so we're down to Mr. Wednesday.
I move that Salem Township approve the bid for the fire department surplus equipment for the brush fire pump for a bid of $25. This was submitted by Donald Roberts. 100-gallon brush fire pump, $25 bid for this.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Supervisor, I neglected to interject there. There's an item there, Fire Department Memorandum of Understanding. I
Right.
did pass out at the board table a draft memo that Chief Rockwell has supplied us. I would like just to ensure that the board is aware of that memo and let's plan to take action next month on that.
We don't need a motion on this.
Not tonight, I want the board to have a chance to review it.
Okay, all right. All right, and then we're down to C7.
Mr. Supervisor, come to our attention that when an employee is on official business, that we do not have a policy by which we can reimburse their expenses that are incurred when they're on doing business. We do not have company vehicles, and all of us as employees, when we're on our own expenses, we're at the mercy of the township rather than employees. Firefighters have in their contract that they will be reimbursed for any of their deductibles if they're involved in an accident while on company business. I feel very strongly that even in Mr. Rockwell's part with regards to hitting a deer with his own personal vehicle, if he would have been in a company vehicle, we would have eaten the claim anyway. So being that he was on company business, I move that the expenses incurred by the employee related to the Salem Township and the business shall be reimbursed the employee with the appropriate documentation and attach the expense reimbursement form. Submitted to the board.
Mr. Supervisor, if I could add to Mr. Convers's recommendation, that for this particular purpose, that we also approve the reimbursement to Mr. Rockwell of $1,000 at line item salary.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, I just have a little bit concern about this. What I would recommend, so are you saying that if I, let's say I'm on township business and I get a car, you're gonna pay my deductible?
If you're officially on business and you're in a company vehicle or insured by a company, you will be reimbursed the same thing applies. That applies mainly in most all every business that I have in. Company vehicles, company vehicles.
Can I also add something to this? I'm not getting all my costs reimbursed here. I'm incurring $400 on money, but I felt it would be fair to not ask more than what we would reimburse the firefighters. And I was in response, running to a call, and as they say, don't swerve for the deer. We jumped right into the roadway and stopped. I hit it about 40 miles an hour, 40, 45 miles an hour. And it was $5,000 worth of damage. And if you've been driving anywhere around here, that was November, it was during the rutting season. It wasn't something I planned, it wasn't something that I would have loved to avoid, because not only did I have the incurred cost, as everybody knows, you lose a bunch of time trying to run around and get cost estimates and getting your car repaired, and then you're stuck in a small little rental car. So it wasn't something that I cherish or look forward to. So I thought it was only fair that I kind of try to do the same thing that we have within the contract and not ask for all the funds.
Mr. Supervisor, I share your concern that you've just raised,
This microphone really
Does it bother you out here? I can't, I'm like, can we get this fixed?
Yeah, make a motion to buy a new one.
Yeah, there you go.
There.
Everybody turn them off and then.
Yeah, turn them off.
Is it?
Jim, pull that.
Oh, you know what? I got the feedback for those two together.
There it is, right there.
It's that center mic.
Now we know.
I think that wire's kind of restricted.
Right.
Too.
All right, well, let me just finish. My concern is that, at least in my business, if I am involved in an accident, I pay my own deductible. I don't want to set the township as a stage for employees or who is going here if they get in an accident. They could be drinking or they could be whatever. I don't want any, but when it comes to the firefighters and our chief, at 2:30 in the morning, I remember the call because I get the calls, they come in, these guys are getting up, they are racing to, it was an injury accident, You know, to me, I just think that kind of a call, we should be more than happy to reimburse for an emergency run like that. But once it gets into the other employees of the township, I say no.
Mr. Supervisor, I would request that we maybe revisit that topic and see if there's some appropriate wording that can be manufactured that can suit everybody here at the table, or at least a majority of us in that regard. I think there's a category of employee reimbursement if the employee is not at fault in a vehicle issue. There may be a not to exceed amount that would be appropriate. And so I would concur with you. Do we make it carte blanche across the board and include the people at this board table? I would say probably not. But as far as our employees, especially when we ask them to go out and as part of their job function have to use their own personal vehicle, if they get broadsided by a driver who is at fault, somebody that runs a four-way stop or a red light, and that now we're asking them to have to pony up and pay a deductible, whatever that amount may be, I think that it's incumbent upon us to protect our employees in that regard. So in this particular case, I concur with you. We should reimburse Mr. Rockwell for that deductible, but I think it's prudent for us to examine what type of policy is beneficial for us to utilize going forward.
Yeah. Maybe to clarify my position, I really do not see a procedure or policy, anything in the policies and procedures manual that would dictate one way or the other. But I think in this circumstances, we could probably, I'm in favor of paying Jim, but I also am going back and saying yes, we probably need to go back and draft a policy that would be all encompassing, that would address this kind of situation as we go forward.
I think we could have a discussion about this, but I think we need to approve or I would like to approve any of the firefighters, if they're going on an emergency run like that's. So then we just need to make a motion to pay that $1,000 bill, right?
Which I think is what is on the table, if I'm not mistaken, because Mr. Converse accepted
All right.
friendly addition
So
to the motion.
the motion on the table is to approve the $1,000 deductible for Mr. Rockwell. And we have a second on that?
I made the second.
You made the second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion is passed. All right, so we're down to the reports, clerk's revenue report, and that's submitted, and then we're down to the fire department.
So thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We, in the month of November, we had 41 calls for requests for services. We had, again, the highest one was 41% was medical, but we jumped up in car accidents. 34% of the calls were car accidents, including one pin-in. Last time I was here, we talked about a structure fire that's been investigated by Michigan State Police, and it's ruled as suspicious right now, so they are investigating it as an arson potential case. The response time is 5 minutes and 28 seconds, which is really good. And that's to having this, again, as I said, the small vehicles deployed and getting there. The last couple things that I have is it's coming on the Christmas season, and people are buttoning up their houses and getting ready for Christmas. So the big concern is Christmas trees, especially if you have real trees, make sure that they're well hydrated or have water for them. Keep them away from, furnaces or heaters, as well as lighted sources. The second thing is candles. If you're going to use candles, make sure they're supervised. We prefer that again, that you keep an eye on those. It just takes a minute or two for us to have a problem. And the third thing that we always get, every department gets, is chimney fires. They don't sweep the chimneys out, and they light the fire. And it's the occasional uses that generally become a problem, especially if they light it a couple times a year and it builds up that creosote, and we have chimney fires. So we ask to have a safe season, wear your seat belts, and watch your Christmas trees, your candles, and your chimneys.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, and the Washtenaw County Law Enforcement has been submitted. And now we're down to board discussion. Mr. Wensley.
Just want to take a few minutes to recap. Last month, we talked about continuing the 457 retirement plan. And the paperwork was put into last month's board packet. And we had several questions from the audience and from the board, and we decided to look at a different route this month. Instead of keeping it going, we decided to look at terminating the plans. And so we submitted the request to our expert from Riemann Company, who are our financial auditors of our Salem Township finances. And they have an individual there who's a principal of the company, who's a CPA, he has all these other degrees behind his name, who specializes in retirement plans. And he gave us, it's in your packet, it's a 2-page document that talks about terminating the retirement plan for Salem Township's employees, and what it would take to basically stop it and file the appropriate paperwork with the appropriate agencies. And one of the issues that has to deal with this is that we have 2 plans, the 457 plan and then this Fidelity retirement plan. It's called a money pension plan. The township really does not, actually, it does not have a document much like the agreement, like a legal agreement. So what we have to do is create an agreement for each plan. No matter what we do with the plan, we have to create agreement with the current holder of the money and Salem Township, because it's been an ongoing process. There's no agreement there, so we have to create one. So it would cost $1,500 to create one for the 457, $1,200 to create this money purchase pension agreement. Basically, if we terminate it, within this document, we have to explain how the township can terminate the plan. Because right now, if we just say we want to terminate it, there's really nothing to follow. There's no paperwork, no anything. So to do it the correct way, Raymond Company says we need to really create a document that allows us to terminate it. And then once we terminate it, it would be an additional maximum of $2,800 to file all the appropriate tax returns and all the different correct paperwork with the correct agencies to get that done. So as a board, we have 2 different ways to go. We can keep it going, or we can terminate it. And we're still looking at what we want to do, so I would suggest maybe by January or February we get an idea of what we want to do and we can talk about it.
Yeah, and Mr. Supervisor, if I can just add to what Dell shared late this afternoon, a representative from Burnham and Flower touched base with me. I haven't had a chance to review that information with Dell. They're implying that they can perform some of these services that Dell outlined at a much lower cost. They're also suggesting that they can, if we wanted to continue the plans, that they can do a different type of plan instead of a 457, make it a 401A for the employer contribution part. That would make us compliant with IRS rules and regulations. But there's fees associated with setting up that new account that have to be considered. They're much lower than what the Raymond Financial Group is proposing. And so, as we evaluate those options, we also need to touch base with the legal counsel that provided the plan document 2 years ago that was supposed to ensure that we were compliant today. And so here we have this, what I would call a friendly professional disagreement on whether we are compliant or not. And so we need to follow up with that, and hopefully we can bring all that information to the table next month and make a decision one way or the other on what we want to do with this retirement.
All right, any other discussion on this?
Well, we have some numbers as to like how many people are participating in this plan and how much it's costing us for continuing.
I've got a question. What's the driver behind the termination or wanting to terminate? I mean, you know, in most places where you work, you got your 401ks.
Use your microphone, please.
You got your 401ks, and, you know, people work for the township. They should have some type of avenue to put away some money for their retirement.
And John, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in one sense, what Berman Flower is proposing, and this is an idea that Dell and I kicked around, is that one way we could get compliant in a hurry, if you will, is to just put everybody into Social Security and do away with what we call the matching part from the township, which is what got us into this quagmire to begin with. And then we would be compliant with Berman Flower, because we've tried to keep both aspects of this plan going. Berman Flower didn't have the appropriate documentation to get us compliant with IRS rules and regulations for retirement plans. So that would be one mechanism where then it would strictly be employee-only monies that are deferred, and it would be open to elected officials, staff, firefighters, anybody that works for the township.
Another point of view, and of course I wasn't around for the past 10 years, but there was a lot of full-time employees that the township had for years, decades. With what we created in the last year, we have really no full-time employees anymore. They're all part-time, they're all under 28 hours.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. Renzo, you mentioned that there doesn't seem to be a good paper trail for this 457, and I find it really hard that we can't find the origin and the seed of this plan. Why would something be renewed and renewed and renewed if there's no basic documentation? And it seems like the law is clear, and I don't understand why it's you know, we've gone to all of the competing legal opinions. I mean, the law is the law, the code is the code. It seems fairly straightforward.
But
We know the origin of the retirement plans.
Well, I know.
That plan was adopted in 1995. What the township board didn't know in 95, that is 40 years prior, the township adopted a Section 218 agreement, and that's what complicates the issue.
What is the Section 218?
Well, this isn't the time and place to go into all that background in detail. If you'd like to talk to us after the meeting or at another time, I'd be happy to give you that information.
Well, I don't need all the detail. What's the flavor of it? It means that you can't have subsequent, it prohibits you from having subsequent plans, or that plans have to comply to specific rules that nobody knew about, or was alive to remember. I mean,
The 218, essentially, when the township adopted that, it said that only certain positions could be entered into Social Security. And when the township board adopted the pension plan in 95, it allowed everybody to participate in the 457 plan, but the township essentially letting employees opt out of Social Security. And the 1955 agreement says, once you opt in, you can't opt out. And once you opt out, you're liable for any FICA taxes that accrued during that point in time.
So what are we doing now so that we don't make a similar mistake?
We've modified with legal counsel the appropriate plans. We have one expert now that's telling us that we're still not quite up to speed on where we should be, and that's why we're having this discussion as to, do we want to continue these plans? Do we want to go through this process of ensuring that as tax laws change over the course of time? Because that's part of what also has happened over the last 40 years, is that Uncle Sam keeps changing the rules, and so you have to have experts that know all of these retirement plans as they went through their evolution and changes. And being as small of a township as we are, one course of action that we could take is to say, we're not going to be involved in the retirement plan business anymore. You know, if somebody wants to save money, they can set up their own IRA through their own financial advisor. You know, is it worth it? You know, back in '95, the attitude was different because, as Dell mentioned, we had full-time staff. And so the intent was to provide retirement benefits that would enhance people to stay, and you reduce the turnover, because then you reduce your training costs. You have stable employees. And we had stable employees for many years.
No, I understand the concept of you know, being able to attract good talent and, you know, talent retention. Just trying to figure out how we got to this mess.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about it. All right, on to discussion. Mr. Trent again, on this.
Just a brief update, board members. We had mentioned last month that we were anticipating a presentation tonight from Mike Kramer of the South Lyon City Council. He is the chairman of the South Lyon Area Recreational Center Committee. And we had to postpone his presentation until next month. And so I just wanted to advise you that he will be on the agenda, front and center, at our January meeting.
Okay.
And
all right. Public comment. Bonnie.
I would like to thank you all for spending our money twice. We have a truck that the chief was initially supposed to get to drive around, and he has given it to someone else. If it's not enough for him to drive around, if it doesn't carry anything more than you can carry in the back of your own car, I suggest we sell it, and I'll be first in line to buy it. I'll give you the $1,000 you just spent for the second time.
Thank you. Carl.
Earlier in the year, we saw some photos of some repairs for the tanker truck for the fire department. And I wondered how that all got resolved, and are we now comfortable with our tanker, or do we still need a new one, or where's all that thing?
We got problems. We got more of,
We have challenges.
we got a challenge with the tanker truck, and there's some needed repairs done right now that we have to go over.
So the repairs that you're referring to, the tank itself has been, we had some issues with cracks in the tanks.
Yeah.
We welded it.
You showed us some photos.
Right, so we have a really old tanker that is going to need to be replaced, and we're working as a solution. There's multi-factors in what we'd like to purchase. And it depends, you know, it depends on where we grow, it depends on a number of factors.
How big it is.
Right, so as you're aware of, and I think I mentioned this the last board meeting, with this last fire, we were the first township in the county to activate what's called the Tanker Task Force. The Tanker Task Force, when we call for it, when I see a structure fire, any of the first arriving firefighters see a fully involved house, they're going to call for the Tanker Task Force. And that immediately gives us 3 responding tankers, 1 from our department, and 2 from our neighboring departments, and they're geographically set up. So in this case, it was over here by Gofferson M14. We got Superior and Ann Arbor Township coming automatically with 2 tankers, and we call that. And that's the reason that structure didn't burn to the ground. It's because we have this automatic, basically. When we call for it, it's one call on the radio, and it's coming. And we've got that set up, what's called the first alarm. And if we use all that and it's not supplying us, we go to a second alarm. And this has been set up countywide, and we're part of it. So the other part is we share with our neighbors. So if Superior gets a fire, or Ann Arbor Township or Northfield, we will share in the same manner to help each other out. Because let's face it, we don't have the water, and we need to help each other out.
But you still need to buy a new tanker?
We do.
Yeah,
We absolutely do. That is essential, and that will help us with our fire ratings.
Okay, anyone else? This is our state representative, Gretchen
Hi. How are you
Bristow.
tonight?
Thank you for coming tonight.
Of course, it was really interesting, and congratulations, you guys have been doing a lot of work on that zoning ordinance and the recreation plan. I just wanted to say hello. It's been a while since I've been here.
I was going to introduce you.
I'm Gretchen Driscoll, state representative for this township and townships west and southwest, so pretty much everything outside of Ann Arbor. So I have about 14 or 15 townships. It's really hard for me to get, because you guys all meet on the same night. So, once a month. But anyhow, I did come once, and I think your meeting was postponed or something. But anyhow, I don't know, Gary, if you were able to attend the CO meeting last week. I've been working with some constituents in the district about broadband and last mile internet. I've gotten a lot of complaints from constituents in the rural areas that don't have access to internet for their kids' school homework and also for home-based business. And we've been working with a nonprofit that's hopefully going to help us find some providers for the more rural areas. If your township's interested, if your constituents are interested, a lot of the townships are sending a survey which has been developed, and I'd be happy to, my staff would be happy to help with this. The idea is this isn't my project, it's a local project, but I've been getting a lot of complaints, and so I've turned up a lot of stones to try to find a solution. As mayor of Saline, we struggled a lot with internet access for a long time, and I know it's been a frustration in the state for a long time. So if you are interested, please contact my office. We're working on a survey to try to have the data back from anybody. Basically what we're trying to do is define if there's enough market in each township to have opportunity to talk to providers and say, hey, there's actually enough density or enough interest here, because that seems to be the argument. I talked to the big providers like AT&T and Comcast. They only want to go where it's dense. So they're smaller providers, and I think there might be some other opportunities. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. And then also, of course, I'm here to represent you, so if you have any questions or concerns about anything going on right now in Lansing.
We're looking for some tax money for the roads.
Yes.
So we can be reimbursed.
Yes, I know about that.
For the project in North Territory.
Right. I'm very aware of that. I'm on the Transportation Committee, and as we discussed, I, as mayor, represent all the cities and villages around the state. In 2008, when we studied the transportation funding problem, we are funding roads at the level we were funding in 2004. The revenue stream is where it was in 2004, because the way our gas revenues come in, it's based on a flat rate of how many gallons you pump in your tank. So what's been happening is our miles per gallon is going up, our revenues are going down. So we do have a problem there. It has not been addressed to date, and I did recently do a newsletter. I don't think it will be addressed in any way that I can see, being on the committee, because there doesn't seem to be the wherewithal at the moment. So what I'm trying to do is work locally with the road commission, make sure that everybody's as educated as possible on what the situation is, and then also, as a freshman legislator, I'm also developing relationships with other legislators, because a lot of people don't understand how road funding works. They don't understand how Public Act 51 works. They want to change. I mean, there's just a lot of dynamics, and so that's really what I'm trying to do at this point. I am totally in support. I was also a local elected official for many years. I'm very aware of the problem. It is a statewide problem, and I'm anxious to help resolve that. So I really appreciate your feedback on that. And I know you guys are running some money and expecting to get paid back from the road commission as soon as possible. So anything else?
I have a question, and I don't know if you're gonna know this or not, but we'll find out. The precinct delegate, everybody's trying to get all their paperwork filed and all that. And I was informed that the rules changed, that we're not gonna be allowed in 2014 to file our precinct delegate paperwork with our local clerks, that it's gonna have to be at the county level only. So if you're in Wayne County, you have to go downtown Detroit. Washtenaw County, we'd have to go to, Ann
That would be
Arbor.
best to call my office, because
Okay.
that sounds like a really, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, that, I don't know.
Because I know that is the case, but I was kind of wondering what drove that and how that got changed, because I'd kind of like to go back.
No, I think,
to making it easier for people.
I'm
to
not
get
about
involved
making
with
more
government.
laws, I actually would prefer we don't make more laws, but,
Yeah.
right now, I'm still new, and, I'm really trying to make a difference that way, but there does seem to be a law for every time there's a problem, and
Yeah,
my
for
observation
every
being in local government is local community, I think local communities know best what's best for their community, and I think it's great to give people tools, but I think it should be an optional thing based on local community. So I'm not really sure what that issue is.
I'll call your office.
Yeah, Ellen could probably help you with that.
I think I've spoken with her before, and your staff is fantastic.
Yep, and I'll leave some cards in the back. Also, my cell phone, for any of you that might want it, it's 734-255-2707. Anybody in the audience, if you ever need anything, that's my cell. So, and I'll leave some cards in the back, but again, you guys are working really hard, and congratulations, make some really big decisions tonight.
Quick question, can I just ask if you know, in the fall, I was hearing at a clerk's meeting that it's possible that the state of Michigan may raise the sales tax to 8%. Have you been hearing anything like that? Nothing?
So there was, the transportation issue, there was, there is, you will get information. Some people will say that we pay the highest amount in taxes for gas. Because when we pay for gas included, we have sales tax on gas. So when you include sales tax on gas, you're actually paying a higher tax. But that sales tax portion goes to local governments and schools. So if we eliminated that sales tax, so this is very convoluted, but basically if we eliminated that and actually dedicated it to transportation, then we would lose about $1 billion. So the idea, there was some talk this year about increasing sales tax 1%. 1%, it was going to go to it would apply to the voters. This didn't actually even get to committee. It was never on my committee, and the Senate was also talking about doing this. The idea would be to replace that amount that normally goes to schools and communities, because it would have gone just on gas. So it would just be on the purchase of gas. It's about $1 billion. So that money would go to the transportation system. So they would have to replace the shortfall that normally goes to schools and communities with a 1% increase. But there is no talk of that at this point. That was something they were talking about putting to the voters, but I haven't heard anything about that. So, any other questions? Okay, it's an honor serving you, and please keep in touch.
All right, thanks, Gretchen. Appreciate you being here tonight. Okay, anyone else?
Thank you.
Okay, if not, do we have some of the motion to go into closed session?
I think so.
Who is it? Myself? If not, is it? I make a motion that we go into closed session for client privilege memorandum at 8:54 or 55, if I can my eyes see right.
Support.
Take a roll call on this.
Converse?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Wensley, yes, and Whitaker.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We want to wish you happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody. Be safe and your families. There's plenty of refreshments, and help yourself on the way out. So.